All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start this lesson by giving all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachah Kodash. Double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who taught us all this truth, and who also rule and teach well. And Shalom Tala Achim in this truth and sincerity, starting with the 144,000 and the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, which we are fighting to be a part of. And this is your brother Chabar Yakar coming back, Lord willing, with another quick and edifying lesson. And the title, the title, as you can see, is Yahweh Shai will take down all nations. All right, Yahweh Shai will take down all nations. And first and foremost, who is Yahweh Shai? All right, that's who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. All right, but the letter J didn't come about until 1524, by a man by the name of Gian Giorgio Trissino. So before that, what was his name? It couldn't have been Iesus, because that's Greek. The scriptures clearly tell you, he spoke Hebrew. His father and mother, were Jews. They spoke Hebrew. So what was his name? Yahweh Shai. All right, and that's his name back then and forever. That's his name. All right, Yah is he. Yahweh Shai means saves or delivers. First and foremost, the Father's name is Yahweh, which means he is or he exists. All right, and Yahweh Shai, as I mentioned, means he saves or he delivers, because that's what he's coming back to do. He's coming back not only to destroy all nations, to take down all nations, but he's also coming back to bring salvation. All right, and that's why the biggest prophecy in the Bible is his return. And it's so big, it's so important. He himself doesn't even know when he's coming back. Only the Father knows. All right, which that's a cut to you wacky tacky Christians. All right, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. The Father and the Son are not the same person. If that's the case, how does the Father know when the Son's coming back, but the Son doesn't know? If they're the same person. Wacky tacky Christians, man. Like I said, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. But anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and start in the book of Daniel, chapter 2 and 34. All right, Daniel 2 and 34. Matter of fact, just so you can get a little context, I'll start up. I'll start at 31. This is Daniel breaking down, the prophet Daniel breaking down the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had. This is Daniel 2 and 31. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breasts and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, and his feet part of iron and part of clay. Now the point is in 34, but I'm gonna break down what that image represents. All right. Now the head of gold, that's going into the Babylonian Empire. All right, which is that's the empire that ruled as this was being written. As this was happening, as Daniel was breaking down that dream to King Nebuchadnezzar. That was the Babylonian Empire, which not long after the medial the Persians and the Medes, they took over. But the head of gold, that's the Babylonian Empire. Which, why is the head of gold? Because the quality of living was the highest back then. Like of all these kingdoms that was on that statue, the highest vibration, the highest the highest. What did I just say? Damn, what did I just say? The quality of living was the highest. Compare the Babylonian empire. With the hanging gardens. You know, they had a beautiful architecture that was in line with nature. They had all type of gardens and that was built into their architecture. Compare that to Atlanta. you know, if you walk down the wrong street, it smells like sewage. It's homeless people. All right, the potholes. There's no wonder that the head of gold was the Babylonian Empire, because like I said, they were more in line with nature. Now the breast and his arms of silver. That's, as I just mentioned, the Medial Persian Empire. The Persians and the Medes, they took over after the Babylonian Empire. Which I believe that's even recorded in the book of Daniel, if I'm not mistaken. Like that happening. The Persians and Medes coming into power. All right, his belly and his thighs of brass. That's talking about the Greek Empire. Ruled by Alexander the Great, and then later his four generals. All right, which is Seleucus, Cassander, Lysimachus, and Ptolemy. His four generals, which they were all fighting against each other. As well, even though they were his generals. Okay, they were divided. But and another little key or hint of how do you know that is what metal were they heavily using during the Greek Empire? Brass. Brass, that they call it the Bronze Age. Bronze and brass is basically the same thing. Tomato. It's basically the same thing, but that's just a little hint of how you know. All right. This is his legs of iron and his feet part of iron and part of clay. So his legs of iron, that's the Roman Empire. All right. Again, another hint is what did they use? What did the Roman Empire use heavily? What material? Iron. That they used it for the swords. They used it for armor. Different other things as well. Or I believe even construction too. They had concrete. They had different stuff. But yeah, iron. That's the Roman Empire. And also something that just hit me too. Your legs is the strongest part of your body. Without your legs, you lose a lot of power. That's how you generate force. To swing a sword or throw a punch. If you don't have legs, you really can't do that efficiently. That's the Roman Empire because they were militaristic. They had a mighty military. They conquered like damn near all the known world at the time. And then his feet part of iron and part of clay. That's NATO and the EU. Okay. There's stronger nations within NATO. All right, and then there's weaker nations as well. Okay. I believe as far as EU, you got countries like Greece. You got countries like France, countries that aren't as powerful, but then you got more powerful countries. All right. But and then they're also divided as well. All those European, nations part of the EU, a lot of them are divided. A lot of them ain't even on the same, on the same page. A lot of them different politics, different, different agreements, different alliances. All right, but ultimately, NATO and the EU is going to turn against America, even though, they're so-called allies. But here's the point. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands. It says, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay and break them in pieces. So that stone that was cut out without hands is speaking about Yahweh Shai. All right. Let me see what precepts do I got. Oh, I do got 2nd Ezra 13. All right. Well, matter of fact, let me just get that right now. 2nd Ezra 13, because that lets you know. How do you know that that's talking about Yahweh Shai? That stone that was cut out without hands. There's a plethora. Salaki. There's a plethora of scriptures, but I'm gonna go to this one because this 2nd Ezra 13 where I'm going. This is a prophecy of Yahweh Shai's return. That stone that smote the image, that represents him coming back, his return. You know, it's going to be as if someone threw a stone on the earth and it's going to shake up the whole earth. It's like throwing a big-ass boulder in the lake and all them ripples. That's how it's going to be when Yahweh Shai returns. He's going to shake up the whole universe, you know, shake up the whole planet. But I'm going to get straight to the point. 2nd Ezra 13:3, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, hold up. Yep, it says, and when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. So he's coming back with thousands of heavens, thousands of mighty angels, you know, the holy angels, you know, an army of them. That's why one of the titles of the Most High is the Lord of Hosts. All right, Yahweh of Hosts, which means the Lord of Armies. You know, it says, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. You know, that kind of still goes in line with what I just read in Daniel. It smote the image, you know. Now it says all they burned that heard his voice, they got smitten. The Lord smote them. That's what he's going to do when he comes back. Isaiah 66:15. All right, he's coming with fire and his chariots like a whirlwind. All right, because the chariots, which what the world ignorantly calls UFOs, they shoot laser beams. And there's actual video evidence of that. You know, it's a video of a chariot, you know, flying up to a nuclear warhead, catching up to it, outmaneuvering it, going ahead of it, and then zapping it and breaking it apart. There's actual video of it, chariot, you know. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Now, again, for you wacky-tacky Christians, you know, there you get, that's where you get the war in heaven. All right, the war in heaven isn't the Most High got off of his throne and started wrestling with Satan, and the angels were cheering like, yeah, you know, Satan, a bunch of angels sided with Satan and they were cheering him on, and then the righteous angels were cheering the Most High and they were wrestling. No, that's not the war in heaven. You wacky-tacky Christians. You know, they were wrestling and then the Most High got the upper hand and he threw Satan out of heaven. And the nigga fell down. He got wings, but he still fell down to the earth. Oh boy. You wacky-tacky Christians, man. No, this is the war in heaven. When Yahweh Shai comes back, Esau, Edom, which is a so-called white race, the Edomites and the other nations that are allied with him, they're going to come with their space force. They're going to come with their air force and all their ships, all their weapons they have, and they're going to try to, you know, shoot at Yahweh Shai and the angels when they come back. That's the war in heaven. It's a future prophecy that hasn't taken place yet. You wacky ass. It's Salaki. Salaki, but verse 5 it says, and I beheld, verse 6. But I beheld, and lo, and by the way, when it says came out of the sea, that's talking about outer space. That's not talking about the sea on earth. Because remember, when the Lord flooded the earth, it said the waters came from above and from below. And it's not just talking about rain, like actual water came out from outer space. You know, the Lord, he opened up the firmament and water actually poured down from outer space. There's water up there, you know? So when it says out of the sea, that's what it's talking about. Also, the Hebrew word for heaven because that's where Yahweh Shai is coming from. You know, he's coming from the heaven, which is outer space. Well, he's coming from the spiritual world where the throne of the Most High is, which that's a heaven. Then he's coming from outer space. That's another heaven. Then he's coming in the sky. That's another heaven. There's multiple heavens. But heaven, the Hebrew word is shemayim, and the root word is mayim, which is water, you know. Continuing on. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. You know, another word for mountain is a rock or a stone. It's just a humongous stone. I mean, you know, you got Stone Mountain over here in Georgia. Technically, it's not even a mountain. It's just a huge boulder. But a mountain is a stone, you know. It's a stone with hella other stones on it. It says, but I could not see. Oh, and another thing, he flew up upon it. That means Yahweh Shai, when he comes back, he's going to be flying around. You know, the angels, they can fly too. You know, Superman, you know, these comic book writers, they didn't come up with being able to fly. That's in the Bible. They got that from the Bible, all right? The angels, they can fly like Superman. Yahweh Shai can fly like Superman. Guess what? We're going to be able to fly like Superman. You know, Kal-El, Kal Allah, all powerful. The Lord's going to give us that power. All right, what's that? Isaiah 40 and man, I forget where it's at. But where it says they shall mount up with wings as eagles, he flew up upon it. And the scripture says we shall be like him when we see him. It says, but I would have seen the region or place where out the hill was graven, and I could not. So that's how you know that's Yahweh Shai, that stone. I'll read it one more time. Daniel 2 and 20. It's like Daniel 2 and 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them into pieces. You know, so that stone that was cut out without hands is Yahweh Shai. He's coming back in a humongous so-called UFO, the fathership as we call it. And it's so big you can't see the end of it. It was cut out without hands. Excuse me. I'm gonna get next scripture, Revelation 19 and 12. It says, this time about Yahweh Shai, I'll start at 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. So that white horse, again, represents a chariot. You know, in Daniel 2 and 34, it was called a stone. You know, a stone that was cut out without hands. In 2nd Esdras, it was called a mountain. Right here is being called a white horse, because white represents purity and horse represents power. You know, how do we know that? Roughly paraphrasing, it's in Ecclesiastes. I had seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants on the earth. A horse, if you ride on a horse, that represents power. You got power. The fact that you're able to own a horse, the fact that you have money, you know, to feed it, to let it graze, that you know how to ride it, that's power, man. And then the horse itself, you know, come on now. A horse is a powerful animal, but symbolically it just symbolizes power. And then white, like I said, pure, so pure power. That's what he's coming back with. It says, and he that he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. That's what he's coming back to do, to judge and make war. This is his planet Earth, and it's not being ran the way that he wants it to be ran. What does it say in Psalms chapter 2? It says, kiss the son lest he be angry. And these world leaders today, they're not kissing the son. They're not acknowledging Yahweh Shai. They're not making sure when he comes back, he's not going to be pissed off at them. Nah, they're doing the complete opposite. they're going balls to the wall, so to speak, you know, just going crazy in wickedness, you know, the transhumanism, All right, trying to be like the Most High with their AI, deporting people, wickedly, wickedly profiling and deporting people, sending people, dropping people off in the middle of the ocean, and bodies are just floating. All this wicked, children going missing, cargo crates, with children in it. All type of wickedness, man. Like, this place just gotta go. That's why he's coming back to judge and make war. And that's why we can't wait. Because we hate this place, man. We hate the way that the earth is being ran. If you're righteous, you're going to hate the way that the earth is right now. The earth isn't how it's supposed to be. So we want him to come back to judge and make war. Because we have no power. We don't have any, power to do anything. So we have to wait for our Lord to come back. His eyes were as the flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. So, hey, it means just that. He's coming back angry as hell. His eyes are red. All right? And also it said his eyes shall be red with wine. Which, he said he's not going to drink wine until, he drinks it with the elect. But still, his eyes are going to be red when he comes back. Out of pure rage, pure anger, man. All right? And that's why, really, we can't be angry, because we can't be as angry as Yahweh Shai. I'm going to just say that. It's like we can't be angry. The Lord got to put his anger within us. And on his head were many crowns. That's the point. Meaning he's going to take down the power and take all these world leaders out of the leader, out of their leader position, so to speak. He's going to fire them. It's like the CEO of a company being fired. I don't even know if that's possible, but for lack of better words, it's like he's about to fire the CEOs of this company because they're not doing things right. I'm gonna end off with this. Psalms. That's the spirit too. I forgot I had that scripture on there, but I was thinking about that. In the back of my head, I was thinking about Psalm 72. Psalm 72:10. The kings of Tarshish and of the isles shall bring presents. The kings of Sheba and of Seba shall offer gifts. This is talking about when Yahweh Shai, returns and judges and makes war, judges the world in righteousness. It says, yea, all kings shall fall down before him. All nations shall serve him. And it says song for Solomon. When you go up, this is a song for Solomon. But who was Solomon? If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. All right. But yeah, it says, yea, all kings shall fall down before him. What's a modern day king? A prime minister, a president, a dictator, whatever title. That's a king, a modern day king. It says, all nations shall serve him. And the word nation comes from, I say the word race comes from the word raza, which means a nation. So a nation is a race of people. All races of people are going to bow down to him. Of course, beginning with the elect. We're the first ones. When Yahweh Shai comes back, he's going to be happy with us because we've been bowing down to him. We've been praying to him, praising him. But you other nations, you're going to bow down and you're going to get cracked upside your head with a rod of iron. And you 2/3 before, you're not going into slavery. I'm not saying that, but you 2/3, you're going to get zapped with a laser beam when he comes back. He's going to make you bow down and then he's going to zap you with a laser beam. But for us, we're willingly bowing down right now. And so on that day, he's going to be pleased with us. And he's not going to judge us. He's going to protect us, It says, for he shall deliver the needy when he crieth, the poor also, and him that hath no helper. That's us, the little guys, the underdogs. He's coming back to save us, man. And he's coming down to take down all you world leaders, and he's going to make us the new world leaders under him. So, lo, and this lesson was edifying and comforting. Once again, giving our praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Shalom.